Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2021 My Team career mode. This is episode number 106 today in Season 7 for the Chinese Grand Prix, and this is the first of 6 sprint race episodes in this season. If you did miss the season opener at the Bahrain Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, uploaded 2 days ago, and the pre-season video, of course, if you missed that somehow as well, for all the driver transfers, all the team changes, and of course, in that video, in the pre-season video, I explained that this season's final calendar is a 16-race calendar, but 6 of those races are going to be designated sprint round episodes. As I said, the reasoning for this is to ensure that we can actually complete a 16-race calendar before, obviously, the new F1 22 game comes out, and also at the same time, I'm going away for a number of days in June, so to allow myself just, a bit of breathing room to be able to actually do the season still and not burn out before the next game, we've got 6 sprint episodes. So the episodes may be a lot shorter than you used to with the My Team career mode series, but it's going to allow us to have, obviously, 60 episodes still in this season, and of course, crucially, kind of just seeing the AI develop over those 16 races rather than just 10, because 10 just seems a bit too short. And to be fair, we'll probably still get a decent amount of action, because even 5 laps in what is currently the My Team career mode, with all the drivers so highly focused and, a lot of them highly rated over 90, the cars being very close together, more so than ever, it should still make for a fun, different kind of episode when it lands on a sprint episode. I did initially plan on actually having these episodes also be a reverse grid start, but I've actually gone away from that idea after a little bit of testing and seeing that the AI, well, they just don't race that well when you have a reverse grid. They kind of get stuck in DRS trains, which obviously doesn't it's not fun for me to play, not fun for you guys to watch, so we've gone away from that idea, and it will simply just be a bog standard sprint race. We will qualify normally and line up on the grid as we did from who was fastest on Saturday. And speaking of, here we go then into the Saturday for this Chinese GP weekend, and the mindset is actually going to be a bit different. It may, challenge myself and the AI to approach the whole, quali and the race differently, in terms of we've got a short qualifying session here, so it's only one session to form the grid, so there's no kind of clever tactics to be done with the tyre compounds. But then in the race, of course, there's no strategy involved, as it is a sprint, so it's really just about trying to figure out how we can go around the circuit as quick as we can, and seeing really who's on top of the car and the circuit combo, rather than who can be a bit too clever with the tyre wear and the strategies. We saw maybe a bit of a saving grace for me off the back of last episode, because Bahrain, my god, did we find out that this car has a lot of tyre wear issues. They're very hard on our tyres. Whether that's all coming from the switch to Honda power, I don't know, but we're very hard on the tyres at Bahrain, and so we need to watch out for that. It's our first return to Shanghai since we initially returned, I believe, what was it, in Season 5, was it, I think, for the first time in this series, and it's an okay lap time. The grid is obviously very close, so I don't think we've actually even lost that much time ultimately to Pierre Gasly, but at the moment he is ahead of us on the grid. I think he's in P3 provisionally right now. We've got Leclerc, Tsunoda ahead of us, Russell right behind me, and last race's race winner Guan Yu Zhou, but it's going to be Lando Norris that is top of the session. But look at where Verstappen is in the Ford Performance, but it's so close between those three. Wow, Norris, Verstappen, Gasly separated by literally a piece of paper that would be on the actual circuit itself. But it was a very bumpy affair, I must say, on that first run, and even now in the second run, I don't know what it is. It's almost like we're getting there to porpoising almost around this circuit with this maxed out FOM car, especially in the last sector I was finding it, and that first corner is just so deadly. It's so hard. You're just waiting and waiting to get on the power and turn in a bit better, so this second run has to be a little bit better. We have improved by about 1/10 of the first sector. We're up to 3/10 of the second, but then the rain starts to fall. We've got some rain to contend with. Didn't factor that in to the sprint weekend here, so we lose some time on the entry and exit, and by the time we cross the line, it's a narrow improvement that will only climb us up into P9 to sandwich the 2 Ferraris. And now the rain's coming down so hard that with 5 minutes to go, no one else actually goes out to set a time. So I was actually one of, I think, maybe 2 drivers maximum that got to set a second lap time in that qualifying session, because it became far wet to improve. So the way it was in the first run is the way it will form the grid. Norris on pole position then. Verstappen on the front row for Ford. My teammate Gasly on the second row. That's a bit more like it from him. And then we could have done a little bit better for sure if maybe we went just a few fractions earlier for that second run, because obviously the rain started falling halfway through that lap. I didn't know the rain was on the way though. I actually didn't bother to look at the weather monitor. So if maybe we went out a little bit earlier, we may have could have actually improved a lot more to be near Gasly on that second row. But we've got a very fast and fiery 5-lap race coming up where we're going to be firing on all cylinders, but you bet the AI will as well. Let's go to the grid for this first ever sprint race in MyTeam Career Mode 2021.
The Chinese Grand Prix then is upon us once more, a race that saw Michael Schumacher claim his final Formula One victory in 2006, as well as Red Bull's first with Sebastian Vettel in 2009. There's no doubt we've got plenty more drama to come here in Shanghai. Shanghai International Circuit then, a 16-corner high-speed thrill ride. The long and ever-tightening right-hander at turns 1 and 2 tests a driver's patience, and the flat, open to the elements location, tests their skill in a crosswind. 2 DRS zones will assist passing, and overtaking is available into turn 1 and of course down the kilometre-long back straight into the hairpin at turn 14. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's race. Lando Norris will lead us away from pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. Looking down the rest of the grid we have Gasly, Giovinazzi, Yuki Tsunoda and Leclerc, Drugovich, Ocon, Fiona Driver and Carlos Sainz, Russell, Joe, Christian Lundgaard and Stroll, Armstrong, Eilert, Mick Schumacher and Jack Aitken, Matsushita, Bottas, Hamilton and Daniel Ticktum. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
So the grid is set, and unlike most episodes, there's no strategy to discuss. It's going to be out and out, flat out racing for 5 laps around the Shanghai circuit. Let's go. Round 2 here in Season 7, a new concept as we go to 5 red lights to the Chinese Grand Prix sprint race in MyTeam Career Mode. 5 red lights are out, and we're on the way to really slow start for Esteban Ocon there. It's a good one for Drugovich, but then gets squeezed out by Tsunoda and Leclerc, and it's Max Verstappen up into first place in the Ford car. He's taken the lead away from Lando Norris. Pierre Gasly's going side by side with Giovinazzi as we're wedged in 3 wide with Drugovich, and that was the Ferrari on the outside. It's now George Russell up in the Aston Martin in P9. Can we make a move on Drugovich? We're going to go around the outside, but the Brazilian will dive it down the inside of Tsunoda. So already you're seeing a bit of desperation, a bit of hustling and harrying, a bit more kind of urgency, I guess you could say, from the cars around us. Everyone kind of knows there's 5 laps, there's very light cars, no heavy fuel on board, and so it's flat out from the beginning. Drugovich on the outside, still side by side with Tsunoda. Those two been side by side the entire section. Can we get stuck in between the two? We're going to down the inside actually of both of them and take both moves very easily into the next right-hander, and Tsunoda continues to fire Russell, and Drugovich actually gets pushed down to P9, that is then. But look at that as we come down the main straight for this opening lap. Max Verstappen's AI is leading a race again in the MyTeam Career Mode series on this channel, but this time he's in a Ford Performance Motorsport car ahead of Norris, Giovinazzi, Lundgaard. Big dive bomb down the inside. Oh, bit of contact, I think, maybe with the Ferraris. He tried to get 2 Ferraris for 1, actually, quite cheekily enough. And meanwhile, Drugovich, I saw there, once again being fended off by Russell, who is firmly wanting to stay in P8 and go further still, as we now see a 3 wide, 4 wide moment between the 2 Williams, Callum Eilert, and I think that was also Lance Stroll getting stuck in potentially for a split second. Yes, he's actually still in the middle of a Williams sandwich, is Lance Stroll in his Porsche, as the 2 Williams Jaguars pincer him, and it was actually Callum Eilert that backed out of that. He was the sensible one, as 4 wide was never going to work into turn 1. Meanwhile, his teammate George Russell is trying to overtake Yuki Tsunoda. These two go at it, and like was the case on lap 1, P1 Tsunoda trying to keep it side by side in that section, unlike with Drogovic, unable to keep Russell at bay, who is charging forward with myself. He's up into P7 from what I think was P11 on the grid, and I'm up to P6 from P9 on the grid. So, former teammates from last season, we were a very, very strong pair to contend with, and you're seeing why that was. Different cars, very different kind of season, and both of us are vaulting up into this race, only 2 laps in, and we may just vault up one more position on Leclerc here, the other Porsche in this race. Can we overtake him? He's going to squeeze us to the right-hand side, but he's not got much of a slipstream off Pierre Gasly. Bit too much time between those two, and so we're able to use him to drag us along, punch a hole in the air, and then try and get past him early on the brakes, cut in for this switch back from right to left. Leclerc sent wide. We can get on the power earlier, and this is when we'll finish the move onto lap 3 to turn 1. Again, Leclerc, though, very aggressive with his squeezing, I must say there, so no love lost between myself and him from our days in, what was it, season 5 is it now? But now it's all about concentrating on our current teammate, Pierre Gasly. A lot of former teammates here that we're fighting at the moment in this sprint race, I must admit. But let's look at this start then. It was actually a not too bad one for Pierre Gasly, a great getaway for Max Verstappen. Wow, look at that. That Ford just shot off like a rocket ship, and the McLaren was just defenseless. And then Giovinazzi actually is down the inside for P3. So actually initially Gasly got a good getaway, was maybe looking good for third, but then Giovinazzi, the reigning Drivers' World Champion of course, really aggressive and just sent it, I guess, down the inside of turn 1 there. We kind of missed it whilst we were looking at the battle between Norris and Verstappen there, but a cracking start for those 4 then, very exciting. And it means on lap 3 then of 5 in this sprint, as we come through to the halfway point, Verstappen leads the way then from Norris, Gio, Gasly, myself chasing after, Leclerc and Russell close together, as we're kind of, we're not gaining as much as I was hoping on Pierre Gasly, rather Leclerc and Russell actually sticking with me here quite well. Tsunoda and Drogovic not too far behind as well, and then rounding out the top 10 at the moment is Carlos Sainz ahead of Esteban Ocon actually, which may be a different dynamic this season. Maybe are we seeing, we've not seen too much of Ferrari yet, and they were a slow starter to last season, but Sainz at the moment keeping Ocon at bay. Meanwhile at the sharp end, Norris going for a move. Verstappen tries to squeeze Lando Norris into the hairpin, and it's a battle for the lead that Verstappen is going to win just about on the outside defensive line there, but he just kind of made the corner far too tight for the McLaren to actually navigate, and so he remains in P2, but he's got a second bite the cherry. The DRS opens for the second time onto the lap 4, and Norris is through, back up into the lead of this race. This is great stuff. This is exactly what we're hoping for with a sprint race like this. We're going to get wheel-to-wheel stuff for the race lead, interchanging from the start to the very end here, and Norris has got up back into P1, Verstappen P2, close behind though, and you know what, Giovinazzi, he's a bit closer to Verstappen than he is to Gasly. Could it be a 3-way fight for the lead maybe on the last lap of this Grand Prix? It could still be 4 to be fair, because Gasly's a bit closer actually now to Gio as we move on to the end of lap 4 on the back straight. Even though I've got DRS off our teammate, we're looking behind at Russell and the Aston Martin lurking around. We go and try and break the toe, then back to the racing line, and we've actually closed up a bit to Gasly, bit of iffiness on the rear end, as even with the 5-lap sprint we're feeling the tyre wear here around Shanghai. Remember, the soft compound is actually really poor around Shanghai. It always was like that in real life since the last time we're here at Shanghai. Very front limited circuit, and so it's quite tricky to navigate, especially this corner alone just tortures the tyres. And look at that, Verstappen now onto the last lap of this sprint, right up the chuff of Norris, but looks like McLaren has slightly better traction it would seem, but then on the straights Verstappen's pulling back away. Those two slightly a bit further now from Giovinazzi, who is backing Gasly into myself and Russell, Leclerc, Tsunoda, Drogovic, actually all so close together. This could be a fiery end to this sprint as we're trying our best to navigate this section. It's so difficult to try and get on the curb, to try and get the better racing line, but at every second you could spin the car out. Need to be very careful, but on the exit we've been historically always very bad versus the AI here, and here you go, and this is what happens. Russell with a big dive, he's nearly made contact with us, and he's gone for it as we enter the last sector of this sprint race. The gloves are off. No, you've got nothing to lose, you may as well go for it. We've had a shocking exit as we had to step off the gas because the rear end was stepping out. This car really has not liked Shanghai flying high, I must tell you. And now we're 3 wide with Russell and Leclerc as they swarm us. Russell on the inside, he's made contact with us and he's broken a bit of our floor, but we've only got 1 corner to go. Where's Tsunoda come from? Huh? He's on the outside and oh god, Leclerc has absolutely decked it into us in the final corner. It all kicks off. And it's late drama in this sprint race. And this is exactly what I thought a sprint race was going to produce. Just pure chaos at the end here. Tsunoda with the switchback of dreams, I must say. And then Leclerc, what is that? That is desperation. That's a man who's thought, hang on, we've only got 1 corner of this sprint race left to go. We may as well just send it and see what happens. And, you know, it's the same thing with Russell a little bit. A bit of twitch of the wheel saw him get that damage. But look at Tsunoda there. That was a brilliant switchback to get Russell and Leclerc. Then he was side by side with us, and then from this on board, it's even further clear how crazy that dive bomb was from Leclerc. Desperation from the new man at the new Porsche F1 team. Again, looking at it, it just was never going to work, was it? It was myself and Tsunoda. We were going to make it fine side by side through that corner. Was never going to work, and look how tight it was for those final points-paying positions. So that was our first ever sprint in the Season 7 of My Team Career Mode, guys. Let me know what you thought of it. Any maybe suggestion, tweaks? Should we try the reverse grid in the future episode of a sprint race? Let me know. But that was the China sprint. Norris ahead of Verstappen and Giovinazzi.
A beautiful performance from McLaren today. Tell me, Ant, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
Well, I honestly feel it was down to the driver and car today. I mean, we can talk driver skill all day, but if you don't have a solid team to back that, you're never going to get anywhere. When you hit that sweet spot of having both an excellent driver and an incredible car, that's when you see results like those we witnessed today.
As the winners make their way up to the podium, one can only imagine the celebrations that will take place at McLaren tonight. Congratulations to everyone on the team, securing the win and proving they're a force to be reckoned with out on the track.
So it's a win that he maybe should have got at Bahrain last time out. Remember, Lando Norris was leading the Bahrain Grand Prix last episode, made that really costly error and dropped way down the order. Gets redemption. Verstappen finally gets back onto a podium in this My Team Career Mode series. And of course, he didn't manage it last episode, where his teammate did. So kind of a bit more deserved maybe for Verstappen last time out. So this time he got the rub of the green and was able to maintain that P2 at least ahead of the reigning champion, Giovinazzi. So after that, then the standings, well, they're very, very close, because you've got Guan Yu Zhou, who actually still leads the way because of how things have shaken up with, you know, obviously Norris getting 0 points last episode and vice versa then for those two. So they're level on points, and then close behind you've got, well, Gasly, Tsunoda, Verstappen, Gio, Strolls in there, and then myself in P8 just ahead of Hamilton and Drogovic. Obviously very early days, hard to tell really what the pattern is right now in terms of the pecking order, but it seems McLaren are quick, but they need to try and iron out mistakes, it would seem. Ford are quick, but we haven't, I don't think, fully seen the kind of true form and performance of, you know, teams like Porsche, Red Bull, and obviously Lotus, Renault as well, and Aston Martin. To say how good they've been, to only have 5 points to their name, I think, you know, Russell's looked so rapid in these first 2 episodes of this season so far. So time will tell. Time will tell. And Ferrari, it's so competitive, and they've really dropped off from where they were with Ocon taking the charge. I mean, just kind of highlights how good of a drive Ocon was doing last season. But guys, if you have enjoyed this one, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And if you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.